Welcome to the Progtalks by the Progspace. Welcome to the Progtalks, an interview series by the Progspace where we will be talking to musicians in all corners of the progressive music scene.
Welcome back to another episode of the Progtalks. I'm your host, Dario. And before we jump into today's topic and welcome today's guest, as always, please don't forget to get us a cup of tea or coffee. Helps us out a lot. As always, thanks in advance. And I want to say hi and welcome to the Progtalks to three wonderful musicians from the UK. And their band is called Giant Walker. Maybe you could just introduce yourselves quickly and what your role in the band is.
Sure. So I'm Steff. I am the singer.
I'm Jamie. I play guitar.
I'm Alex and I play drums in that exact same band.
Wonderful. And but that's not the entire band. There's who is completing the band? The bass player, right?
Yeah, we're missing Jordan, who's our bass player.
Typical bass player.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So today is May 6th. So in 1 week, there's going to be the release of the Giant Walker debut album, All in Good Time. Is that correct?
Indeed.
Yeah, that's the one.
Wonderful. So it is your debut album. And I mean, you over the last year or so, you already released 5 singles off of that, and but still, you're a relatively new, fresh, young band. So I guess a lot of listeners might have not heard of you so far. That means maybe you can tell us a little bit how the band came together in the first place, and what kind of music we can expect from Giant Walker.
We all come from the same area, which is Newcastle in the northeast of England. But we all met in the south when we all went to university to study music, and took a while to find each other. But ended up finding me, Steff, and Jordan, the bass player, knew each other beforehand, and then we met Alex at university and realized that we were all from the same place, so we kind of immediately had some kind of kindred spirit. And then we just realized that we all like the same music and kind of just thought we'd start writing, and we definitely all like the same thing, with slight variations. It's generally all in the heavier side of the spectrum.
So when at which point in time would you say this was the founding date of Giant Walker? Was it like before the pandemic already, or at the start of it?
So there's kind of two answers that we could give you here, really. So when we all started playing music together as a collective back in 2015, but we were under a different name, and we released a couple of EPs and did quite a lot of gigs, and kind of did some tours and I don't know.
Yeah, did all that, but then the pandemic kind of like gave us the opportunity to. It was a rebrand essentially, but it was kind of a chance to just kind of go in a different direction, because everything stagnated. Everyone wasn't doing anything, and we just felt like we all enjoyed playing music together, but we felt like we kind of outgrew the old name and the music we were writing, and kind of just wanted to break off and start afresh, but with the same people. And it's fair to say, I think we're all so much happier with, the name and the package that we're presenting now. like feel a lot more comfortable in our own skin, so to speak. If you get what I mean.
I think like from obviously like meeting at uni and like forming our original project, like we were obviously quite young at the time and just kind of like writing and putting stuff out and just kind of learning the ropes, shall we say, like about it, I think. And I think we kind of got to a point where we were just kind of like we've got some experience now with kind of what might be a better approach, or don't know, just had time to kind of try stuff out and see what works and what didn't work. And then just kind of felt like, as Jamie was saying, like the pandemic kind of ended up being like the perfect time to just hibernate a bit and kind of write some
actually
new
reflect on like
and,
whether we were actually happy with the like what we were putting out, because I don't think there was always a compromise with what we used to put when we put out under the old band, and it just didn't really feel like we just wanted to separate the new stuff from that, and really give it a new lease of life. And like I say, we're all far happier with.
Yeah, you just said you're also happy with the new name. Where did this name come from? Is it a Star Wars reference?
You know what it is? It could be.
I always see a giant walker from Star Wars in front of my eyes when I look at the name.
Funny enough, I think that was Alex's point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The day that always reminds him of Star Wars. It was actually funny enough. It was our bass player, who isn't here, who actually came up with the name. So kind of following on from what Jamie said, like we had throughout the lockdown kind of sat down and remotely recorded like a load of demos that ended up obviously becoming our debut album. And I can't remember where I was going with that. My brain is blank. Jordan came up with the name, and so we were reflecting on basically like whether we should continue with the same, like play out under the same name as previous, or whether we should just kind of have a fresh start. And we were basically doing like weekly Zooms where we'd all like try and bring like 3 band names and just like discuss basically. But it was quite a long process.
Oh yeah, we spent a lot of time on it because we had made that mistake before. We had made the mistake of like settling with something that was just like, yeah, that'll do. Like, not really thinking about it, and not that you should when you're like 14, 15, 16. But it was definitely it was one of those names where it kind of, we pulled it out the hat, so to speak, and we kind of looked at it and we were all like, yeah, that's pretty cool actually. And then we were like, we'll sit on it. And as time went on, it actually got better. Like, everyone started preferring it more.
I feel like not everyone was on the same page with it. Like Alex was a bit unsure. I remember being a bit unsure about it when we first like got it out. I think Alex is just like, you just kind of feel like it reminded you of Star Wars too much. I don't know.
Yeah, I think like the first time I heard it, it's because it was in the mix with so many others as well. It stood out and it was cool, but it was like I couldn't convince myself that like that's the one, and that's what I wanted to happen. Like I wanted to see something and be like, yep, that's it, we're going with that one. And it didn't really happen, but it happened eventually because everything else was terrible. You know what I mean? It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you know what it is actually, yeah, that one is the one. You know what I mean? So it was one of those processes where, we trawled through endless lists of stuff, and we all eventually came around. I think I dug my heels in that one for probably the longest time out of the other 3, because they were all like, yep, and I was like, I don't know, but man, I'm happy that we went with that one. Now thinking back to the other names and other ideas we had, Christ, yeah.
Well, enough talk of the band name. What is even more important than the band name is the music itself, of course. So I would assume, like, having listened to the album All in Good Time a couple of times now, that like I found it surprisingly mature, and also kind of, with a lot of debut albums, it's maybe you can hear a band kind of searching for its sound and for its signature sound, and with All in Good Time, I had feeling you know what you want to do. This is Giant Walker. So how did the songwriting process go, and how, and did you also have that feeling of certainty that this is our new sound, the four of you?
I think so, and I think a lot of that comes down to the fact that we've obviously played together for a while already. So obviously, whilst the band is fresh, we have grown together as a group of musicians for longer than the band's life. So I suppose that's what I mean. We all felt the same. We all felt like, this was the culmination of years and years and years of playing experience, which it was, because we have done that for so long. But the writing process was very much in this room, basically, because it was over the 2 years of the COVIDian chronicle. It was all remotely written. I would basically, write and record most of like this a skeletal form of a song, and then send it to the guys in the rough state that it was, to get opinions and whatnot. And then, I mean, sometimes it would just be finished. Like, I would record, demo something, Steff would come in, record something over it. We'd send it to the guys, and they'd be like, yeah. Next, kind of just on to the next one. Some were labored over for a long period of time and took a really long time to, glue together. As I'm sure, like most songwriters would say, there are those ones that you write in an hour, and there are those ones that like a year later you're like, I've still got this idea. It hasn't got a home yet, but it will do one day. So yeah, the writing process was just, I enjoyed it because it was quite, just got to sit in a room, and because there was nothing to do, I guess.
That actually reminds me, the last two interviews that I did, kind of, I think it was the same for these two bands. I'm going to mention them later. They're both really cool UK prog bands, but I want to mention them later in a different context. So hold on to that thought. But speaking about other bands, to give the listeners of the Progtalks a little bit of an idea what they can expect, how would you describe the sound of Giant Walker?
It's a tough one. We all have loads of different influences. I mean, me, Steff, and Jordan, the bass player, are very similar. We kind of all very much love the kind of Seattle grunge scene, and slightly more traditional, I think. Even though Alex still likes all that stuff as well, but he's definitely, I'm speaking on behalf of him. Even though he's right here, but I'm sure he'd agree he's not as much of a fan of those things than
yeah.
Me,
so for us, like as Jamie says, like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, that kind of background of it, and also like obviously your classics like Zeppelin and Pink
I think
Floyd,
we all kind of come together on those classics. We all like go back to Zeppelin, or we can all appreciate that.
But also with a definite like influence on like some of the newer stuff, but like Carnival, Tool, Deftones. I don't know. Maybe add some bands, Alex.
Well, I mean, just going back to what you were saying before, like the sound, I always think of it, and I know this probably might not be the same for the other guy's opinion, but I always think of our band as just like a big cocktail of all of our favorite bands put into one, and that's kind of what I always thought and imagined the kind of mission statement behind the music to be, to kind of just combine all of our influences and kind of develop our own sound out of that. So when people listen to our stuff, they can be like, oh yeah, that sounds like now it would be Giant Walker. And yeah, I think that's always been a bit of a goal, I think, for us to kind of cover our own sound, but still have some sort of reference to our sort of influences and things like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've mentioned this a couple of times on the Progtalks now, because yeah, it seems to be at least for me, a new trend that I don't know if it's an outside trend. So if there's really more bands like that emerging, or it's an inside trend for me that I get to like more and more of these bands. And then what I'm talking about is specifically very proggy bands that do have that grunge influence. And as I said, I probably mentioned a lot of times in the last 2 years on the Progcast and the Progtalks now, that I'm not the biggest fan of the original grunge movement, of the grunge sound, of this alternative whatever, of what this sound aesthetic. And lately there's more and more bands that I'm really digging that do have that distinct influence, mixing it up with something proggy, and I'm really, really digging it. Like the one of the very first bands that added some King Crimson and Voivod to the cocktail, I would say, from Canada. I think Gargoyle, like a side project of Dave Davidson from Revocation, tech death band. Absolutely fantastic stuff. But a lot of other bands that are not as like out there avant-garde as you have. Well, when you've got King Crimson and Voivod in the cocktail, then it's bound to be not as maybe I would say mainstream compatible.
Yeah.
But with Giant Walker, I would definitely say that despite it being like a lot of proggy riffs and odd meters, polyrhythms, whatever going on, there's definitely a focus on songwriting, like a compact song with strong hook lines and a compact song structure as well. Would you agree to that?
Definitely.
That's probably something that we, I don't want to say made a conscious choice for, but like I feel like that definitely came out a lot more in Giant Walker than perhaps previous. I think before, with our old project, we were kind of just like experimenting and playing, and maybe fresh out of uni had a lot of ideas on different technical aspects of it, and had a lot more of that kind of techie like influence. Whereas I feel like it's kind of just like, maybe potentially because we also wrote this album like in such a different scenario. Like obviously with all of our previous stuff, it's always been kind of jammed in a room, and I think
it's very easy when you're in a room when you're in a room with other musicians. It's quite easy to go like, oh well, what if we did this, and then what if we did this, and it would kind of you kind of spiral into like, hang on, this idea, this is in a completely different place now, which can be great, and you can come up with some really wicked stuff that way. And I think you can only, at least we can only come up with certain stuff that way, with the constant back and forth and bouncing. But I think, because it was written remotely, and like
hearing it back straight away, I think that was very
that's
much
a big thing.
A big thing. It kind of lend itself to that just somewhat naturally, I think.
Yeah. But we're all massive fans of like the classic song form. It has to be said. It's like the songs we always go back to are songs at the end of the day. It's very rarely like 20-minute soundscapes that get lost. So I think that's a big part of it as well.
I'm just thinking about some of these in the like in the prog rock scene. I think today there's a reissue of the Flower Kings album. Then what's the name? The one Flower Kings album that Stardust. Stardust. Like half an hour epic. That's my favorite Flower Kings song. But it's a different kind of approach to music, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes it can also come across as randomly scrambled together. Let's add this part, and then let's add this part. I want to read something from your kind of bio that you have on your website, because it definitely spoke to me. Obviously about All in Good Time, the album written during the 2020 lockdown. Their upcoming releases future themes of self-isolation and a dystopian reality. Their music captures the many lows of loneliness and tips ahead to the music that gets you through hard times, sweeping you up in a conceptual journey from giant riffs to melancholic melodies and ambient soundscapes. This thing about music that gets you through hard times especially spoke to me. And in the last 2 years, there certainly has been quite a few releases, especially since I started following all the releases so closely for and with the Progspace, with our releases of the week series, that did exactly that for me. And but yeah, in the last weeks and months this year, just as well. So I would love to ask you if there's any particular songs or albums that did that for you and help you through hard times. Maybe these hard times in the last 2 years, 2.5 years almost.
That's a great question, to be fair, because like I've always thought that, songs and albums kind of age with you, and they kind of become companions in their own way. And for me, I certainly have, like, there's certain songs and albums that literally transport us back to like a moment, and I can almost like smell like the area I was in at the time or whatever. And there's only a few, to be fair, there's only a few albums and songs that do that for me. One album in particular is Super Unknown by Soundgarden. Just any song off that, to be honest, just the tonality of it, the production, it's just a sonic, like, nostalgic memory. Like, it just. And then the other is probably Songs for the Deaf, Queens of the Stone Age. They're the two albums. I could pick any song off those two albums. Like, yeah. We'll do it one at a time. What do you think?
That's a hard question. I feel like it depends for me personally, because I feel like I would either be, I kind of go two ways. I don't know if people relate to this or not, but I feel like when I need to kind of catharsize with music, I would say I'm either going to go for something heavy or something like vibey. So the two, I guess, that are coming to mind would either be like Rage Against the Machine, because I feel like for me, anything, I don't know, that
angsty.
Yeah, like I feel like, I mean, you can't really get any more like.
Yeah, they are the angst band.
Listen to Testify or something like that just gets all my anger out, like, to be fair. So I would say either that, or I would say maybe I tend to go for like a Radiohead kind of vibe of like down a rabbit hole of melancholy sadness to just wallow in kind of like, something that kind of
pit of despair.
takes you with it, in the sense of like, I don't know, maybe takes your mind away from the shit that's going on, but also like it's not, it feels like it's on the same level, if you know what I mean, as like where you're at. So yeah, I would say that there was maybe two routes I would go on. But
Alexander.
Again, it depends. It depends how you're feeling, man. Really, like if you're happy, you know, you want something that's kind of like gonna sort of make you feel good. But if you're feeling sad, then it's sad boy moments, and you're sticking something cheesy on or something like that. But I think like a couple of standout albums, I think for me over the years, I think in a sort of rock metal context would probably be, I would say probably Clairvoyant by the Contortionist. I remember the first time I heard that was literally when I just moved into one of my new houses, and it was kind of, I remember like unpacking all my stuff and like getting set up for that, and that album always reminds me of that time. And yeah, it was quite a sort of, it was quite a happy time and things like that. But again, the album's like super kind of dark, and quite sort of depressing, really. But for some reason, it kind of, it's quite a nice balance of the two. But I guess on the flip side of the coin, really, another one would be Born and Raised by John Mayer. Again, not metal related at all, but yeah, that's one of them albums I think I can 100% just stick on, and you listen to it all the way through. You know, it's one of those albums where there's not that many skips. You know, and I think as well, not to bang on about John Mayer, but that album is always a bit of a curveball. I think for a lot of people, like it is, they either love it or they hate it, because it's not necessarily what you would expect from a songwriting approach and from just a general hymn approach. It's quite different, but yeah, I would say they're probably my two.
Yeah, I had a little different approach because when I read that quote of yours on your website, I was very much reminded to A, something new, and B, very specific parts in songs, even not whole albums. So the two British bands I was talking about earlier, one is Pure Reason Revolution. They dropped their new album today, Above Cirrus, and the long track, the 10-minute track on that is Scream Sideways, and that chorus on that song is just so mind-blowing. When I put it on for the first time, I was also like doing something else. And then this chorus suddenly hit out of nowhere, and I was just really, that was a jaw-dropping moment. I had to stop whatever I was doing. And then like throughout the whole song, which goes on like different tangents, like it has some like really forward driving riffs, as well as some electronic parts, and then some more spacey ambient parts. But whenever I was like, okay, yeah, that's cool. But when is that chorus coming back again? Absolute goosebumps moments. And the other one would be Porcupine Tree. I had the pleasure of talking to Richard Barbieri a couple of days ago, and we're gonna release that episode in the week the new Porcupine Tree album Closure Continuation is coming out June 22nd, I think. And I had the huge privilege of listening to Closure Continuation already, and there's the very last track on the album, or it's even the last of the three bonus tracks, is the only instrumental. It's called Population of Three, and it is a Steven Wilson, Gavin Harrison composition jam, and like it's quintessential Porcupine Tree, just like alone the way it sounds, and really gave me goosebumps. It was absolutely wonderful. Those were the two bands that I had to think about earlier, about the songwriting thing, that some songs write themselves in a matter of hours, and others take years to perfect. But finally, there's another band that I'm gonna interview tomorrow, and then it's gonna be the episode after this episode. They're from France, with a British drummer and percussionist. They're called Gerald, with a like exclamation marks at front and the beginning of the word, and they're absolutely mind-blowing avant-garde piano prog stuff, and at the very end of the album, the last two songs is like a kind of two-part song. Suddenly goes on this absolutely goosebumps-inducing post-rocky melody that reminded me a little bit of another UK band, Voronoi. The last song on Voronoi's album also had this absolutely massive goosebumps moment. So these moments, when there's these moments in the music, I find and that get released in all these amazing albums, but when there's like this spark you're finding in the new music you discover, this like absolutely magic, and it's for me it kind of makes all the hours and work I put into the Progspace and the Progtalks absolutely worthwhile, and it just ties in with that thought about music helping getting through hard times when you're for whatever reason having a hard time mentally, and I think to sorry to come back to Giant Walker, I would say All in Good Time, with that wonderful album title as well. I think it's a good time for All in Good Time now, and I think it it's good vibes and a good energy, and I'm really happy for you that you're gonna put it out finally now, and I'm guessing you're probably as well really excited for it to finally be out, and I'm really curious for people to discover it, and what's next for Giant Walker? You got some shows coming up?
We do, yeah. We've got a UK tour, which is in June. So kicks off. We've got 10 dates coming up in June. So various places across the UK. So that starts on the 2nd of June. So yeah, we're really excited to properly kind of.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've had like a real just string of shows, one after the other. It'll be good to get back into the swing of it, blow off the cobwebs.
Yeah, I think especially like from a song point of view, like obviously because they were all kind of written remotely, and that obviously changed our approach kind of entirely. It's been really good. Like we had a gig just on Tuesday supporting our friends in Black Orchid Empire in London, and it's been really nice kind of getting back to actually playing the songs together, because actually when it obviously recording, like we're all playing the parts separately, and it's been funny that it's taken such a long time from actually writing the songs to actually performing them, yeah, because obviously normally it's the complete reverse of that. Like normally you've got a chance to like play a few shows, oh here's a new tune, like drop it, see what the reaction is, and kind of I don't know, they kind of evolve like as obviously you're playing them. Yeah, so it's been really interesting to kind of reverse that process, and where I think we're really looking forward to as Jamie says, that like actually having like a solid run of shows to kind of see how they kind of develop, and evolve as we go through.
Wonderful. I'm in Germany, in Munich, so I won't be able to catch one of these shows, unfortunately. But I do hope to see you at one point in the future, live on stage. All the best with the release of all in good time, and have fun at these shows. I'll definitely keep my eyes on your socials to maybe get some impressions. At least visually. And you guys out there listening to the Progtalks, you definitely should also follow Giant Walker on their social media channels to keep up to date what they're up to in the future. You're going to find the links in the description and everywhere, as always. Just like our socials as well, the Progspace, we are also always happy about new follows and likes and comments and cup of tea, cup of coffee. You know the drill. Giant Walker, thank you so much for taking the time. It was absolute pleasure talking to you. All in Good Time is out in a couple of days when this drops, May 13th.
13th, yeah. So next Friday, I guess, as recorded. But yeah.
Wonderful. That's it for today. Thank you guys out there for listening. Until next time, take care of yourselves and your loved ones, and keep spreading that prog love.
The Progtalks, produced by the Progspace. Main host, Rune Belsvik Reinås. Produced by Rune Belsvik Reinås, Vanessa and Matthias Kirsch. All graphics and animations by Vanessa Kirsch. Intro theme by Giuseppe Negri. Outro theme by Zach Munowitz. This was the Progtalks by the Progspace. See you in a week.